Okay, this is a great day in America, July 17th. Kelly, did you like that better?
I was confused the whole time. Well, what kind of ancient machine was that, and why did it have different things on it than the one on my phone? What's the CLX and what else? What is all that?
Oh, Kelly, I have been waiting all week for you to say, Joe, I like your handwriting again, and all you're doing is bitching about the kind of calculator I'm using. Oh, Lord. Okay, so here's the answer. I'm going to do, so I have both. There's two calculators. There's the 10B2 and the 12C. Okay. Some people still use the 12C. I've done both. I've written books on both. So that was a 12C video. I have a whole course for the 10B2. Okay. But my point was, which now I am just devastated for the rest of my day. So I shot that with an overhead camera and paper and pen instead of on my tablet. And I think my writing's better, but I guess
yeah, that part was fine. I just couldn't get past the strangeness of that machine.
Cool. So Jeff, what did you think about that, since you know what a 12C is?
I thought it was great, Joe. I like the fact that it's kind of dented and scratched. It's your street cred.
It's the one my dad gave me when I was in a graduate finance program at WSU in 1985.
I felt like we flashed back to the 70s or something.
It's the machine.
Retro is in, Joe.
Totally. And I'm such a trendsetter. You can tell from my fashion.
He started the video with the retro thing, and he just kept it going.
Exactly. Okay, let's move on. So, Chris, we talked yesterday, and I want you to keep this to about 2 minutes because there's a reason for this. I'll tell you in just a second. But you have 2 minutes to tell us about the one best thing that you did last week in New York City. Go ahead.
Oh, my God. Well, we walked 70 miles and saw about 3 major things a day. The Broadway plays were really cool. Saw a couple of them, saw Six and Juliet. So my sister lives in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and she's a newscaster, and she lives right adjacent to Somerset, where Flight 93 came down in 9/11. My birthday is also 9/11, so we have some weird ties to this event. And it's the 25th year anniversary of that. And she and her daughter came out to join me and my daughter for 3 days. And our first full day, we went and finally checked the 9/11 memorial off her bucket list. And that was really pretty moving. And, you know, she shared a lot of personal experience and whatnot with my daughter, which was really cool. That was probably the biggest, most heaviest thing, but just really getting intimately familiar on foot for 8 full days with New York City was a lot of fun.
Cool.
I'm going back. There's no two ways about it. It's probably going to be an annual trip.
Perfect segue. So here's what I'm just going to put out, and we'll talk about this some more. I've been in New York about 4 times, and I've actually taught, I think 3 of those times in New York City. I've taught Desert Pencil. So when I get the new courses done, I'm going to get them approved in the Empire State. So I'm just going to put this out. How about a field trip to New York City between Thanksgiving and Christmas? Who would be interested in that little fun trip?
I might actually be going in October already, but
well, now you get to go twice. Okay. So the difference is this one would be tax deductible because you'd be going for continuing education.
Ooh.
Anyway, it's a lot more fun to go with
to
your
me.
buddies. So I just want to kind of say that. We'll talk about it some more. But I was thinking yesterday, you know, why not? Everybody does all these trips for CE. Shit, let's us do one. Let's go to New York. If
Maybe
you've
we get
never
a,
been
like,
in New
group
York,
rate on
it's the
flights
coolest
and
thing in the
hotel.
world. It's the
My
coolest
husband
thing ever.
refuses, so I'd have to go with in room
Well,
with
I
one
guess
of the
he's
gals.
just going to have to stay home.
No, yeah, exactly.
Bummer. Oh, well.
So Chris and Mercedes want in. We'll stay together in a room.
Perfect. Okay. Before we get to our infamous guest speaker, any questions about what we've done so far? Any comments? Okay. So I have really been looking forward to this for a while. this guy, I actually thought about him when I first started talking about this guest speaker stuff. So this is Mike Nixon, and Mike is one of my best friends. I've known him for a long time, over 40 years. I met
Since
him
he got his 12C.
Yeah, yeah. I've known Michael for 45 years. We were at WSU together in 81, 82, those years, and then the rest of our lives. So Michael took a job out of college, worked for State Farm, and stayed with the company for his entire career. And he is focused primarily on the auto side of the business and worked his way up the ranks into management and finished his career on the on the defense side of litigation. So he's dealt with a whole gambit. So what we're going to do is the 3 questions that'll kind of help you get to know his story a little bit better. And then we'll let it rip, and the rest of the time is for you guys for questions. Okay. So without further ado, let's start with question number 1. Mr. Nixon, what is one problem a customer of yours had, and how did you solve it?
Very early on in my career, when I was still a claim representative, I had a case, auto accident that happened in Cleon. So those of you from Washington may have driven through there, but there's an on-ramp. There's a highway that parallels the freeway there and an on-ramp in between. And it's a little bit confusing. But my insured was driving his new Mercedes coming back from Chelan. He had a place over in Chelan. He was the vice president of Alaska Airlines, quite wealthy. And he made a left-hand turn across traffic to enter that on-ramp onto I-90. Unfortunately, there was a young lady coming in the other direction in a little Volkswagen Bug, and he hit her right in the left front. I mean, head-on collision. She hit the windshield, put her left shoulder into the A-pillar, very significant injuries, catastrophic claim as far as how it affected her, and real obvious that the value of the claim was going to be very high. She immediately retained an attorney, high-profile attorney out of Tacoma. Forgetting his name now, but at the time, I remember, seeing him in the paper and that sort of thing. And he basically went for the jugular of my insured right from the beginning, filed a lawsuit very early on, and wanted to make my insured pay. Unfortunately, my insured only had limits of $100,000 per person and $300,000 per accident. He didn't have a personal liability umbrella policy. And so we had $100,000 to work with for this liability claim. Her medical bills alone were over $100,000. So it was an obvious case. And very early on, we offered those liability limits to settle her claim. And they wouldn't take them. They wanted to pursue my insured's assets. And my insured had a lot of assets. He lived on Mercer Island. He had a place at Chelan. He was driving a new Mercedes when this happened. He did not have enough insurance. The big lesson for me was that once we determined that we couldn't settle that claim right away, we started pouring money into hiring the best defense attorney we could and pulling together the best expert witnesses that we could to try to defend our insured. And eventually we got to a mediation, short of trial. The plaintiff agreed to mediate the case. And so I come into this mediation with my little $100,000 and say, well, we offer $100,000. And the attention turns over to my insured because now my insured's negotiating with his own money. And we were able to help him because of the good lawyer that we had retained, because of the good expert witnesses that we had retained. We had been able to throw some doubt into the case so that he had some negotiating room. He had some leverage to work with. And I mean, I remember him crying the blues about, this is going to harm his ability to send his children to college. And as he told his story in the mediation and so forth. But it got settled, and it got settled for $10,000 out of his own pocket. And I remember being devastated. This is about probably 1987. And I thought $10,000 was an awful lot of money, to have to pay out of your pocket. And anyways, we had come down there in the defense attorney's van that day. We had ridden down with my named insured and his wife. And I get into the back seat of the van in the slider door and sit down, and I'm just sick to my stomach, thinking about how I had failed my insured and the fact that he had to pay $10,000, because we weren't able to get the case resolved. And he turns to the defense attorney and to his wife, and he high fives us all around the van. And he was so happy and so appreciative that he was able to get the case resolved. He was somebody that understood money. He understood negotiations. He was a pretty savvy business person. I was brand new to the business, and I learned a pretty important lesson that day, which is it's not just the policy limits that is there to protect you. Your insurance company will provide you with a defense, and they will provide you with leverage if you have a catastrophic loss and don't have enough insurance to cover everything. Almost all cases settle before they go to trial. It's very rare that they actually do go to trial, but we prepared in case we needed to go to trial just about every time.
How old were you when that case came down?
How old was I?
Yeah.
I would have been about 24, 25 years old.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Huh. That's
I was a newer claim representative. I'd been there maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
So,
okay, let's go to the next question. And this may not apply directly to you, but we've talked about it, so you know how to answer it. And the question is this: how does someone work with you?
Well, as a claim representative, you would be assigned the case, and so you're basically at the beck and call of your insured. You're there to help them investigate, evaluate, and resolve their claim. As a manager, you probably would have never talked to me, or it would have been a very rare occasion that you would talk to me. My basic job was to hire, train, prepare the claim representatives, and to help them to evaluate their cases and to make decisions on which attorneys to retain and what our litigation strategy was going to be for each individual case.
Perfect. Okay, next question. This is number 3. We've got this and then the bonus question. So here's the question. What are the benefits of having insurance? And I say that because so many of us are so accustomed to the what I want to say, well, paying out and not receiving back, whatever the word is for that. So here's a chance for you to tell us, well, this is why we're doing it. And your first story was a great reason why, but go ahead and fill in the rest of the blanks.
Yeah, insurance isn't gambling, you guys. Insurance, you're paying for a service. You're paying for a promise that in case something really bad happens to you or you cause mayhem on someone else, that they're going to step in for you. And the real value comes into that. That was a very rare case that I talked to you about to start with, that somebody has to pay out of their pocket. I can only recall about 3 or 4 cases during my whole career where an insured had to pay out of pocket. And generally it was when they were pretty darn wealthy and they didn't have enough insurance and they had a really bad accident. Most common people, plaintiffs don't want to put somebody in the poorhouse most of the time. It takes something egregious. A drunk driver kills somebody's wife. Really egregious injuries that cause a big disability to somebody. In the business, we called that serious injury claims, and we monitored those much more closely than we did others. The real value from your insurance comes in the professionals that are there to step between you and those people that you harmed, and to assess what those damages might be, and to try to get the darn thing resolved within your liability limits. And 99.9% of the time, they do. It's very, very rare that you'll be involved in a terrible accident that, is worth more than your limits throughout your lifetime. And if you are, most of the time, the plaintiff will accept those limits when they're offered by the insurance company. The value,
there's
the
some
value
hope
comes in that service, the amount of money that is spent in defending a claim is often much more than what the claim settles for. And so you can't look at it as I paid in this much premium and they only paid out this amount for damages, so I didn't get a good deal. It's like, no, they had to pay out for a lot of other things along the way to adjust those claims and to resolve them.
Perfect. Okay. Last question, the bonus question. If you're going to give one piece of advice today to a 20-year-old or someone in their 20s, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, I'll give an overall first, which is I think you just need to get up every day and put your nose in there and keep moving forward. I did it for 40 years with the same company. Wasn't always fun every day, but I have reached all of my goals. I retired earlier this spring, and I never made a lot of money during my career. I wasn't an entrepreneur. I worked for a salary. But life has been pretty good by getting up every day and trying. And I got knocked down several times during my career, but I just encourage people to move forward. From a claims perspective, I'll just give you some insight as to, what I would say to a 20-year-old or any age person that has a claim. I taught my claim representatives to recognize what type of a claim that they were dealing with. And so there's three types of claims. You have claims where minor accident, not terrible damage to the cars, somebody's stiff and sore, they may go into the emergency room, they may go to urgent care, they might go to their chiropractor for a little while. But generally speaking, pretty straightforward as far as liability goes. Those are the cases that I teach my claim representatives to offer to resolve the claim right away, to open the door to people and help them understand that I'm here to assess the value of your claim and to get it resolved with you. And sooner or later, you and I are going to be talking about money, and I'm going to be asking you to sign a release when we get to the end of this so that I protect my insured from you bringing any future claim. And you need to talk about that process with the customer so that they understand what they're getting into. You also need to understand that not everybody is comfortable with talking about that early. They don't know, where things are going. And so it's important to remind them that you have a 3-year statute of limitations in Washington State, or going to be 2 years, depends on your jurisdiction. But to explain to people that there isn't any hurry, that I'm here, I'm ready to start talking about resolution of your claim as soon as you're comfortable to do so. The second type of claim that we want them to recognize early as the bad claims. So the claims that I discussed earlier in the example that I had, where we've got egregious injuries that likely are worth more than the policy limits. Those type of cases, we want them to get up to management's attention right away. And as a manager, we're taking a look at those and we're putting them policy limits on the case very early on. And so we want our claim representatives to go to those parties early on, within days or weeks of the accident happening. Once they've determined coverage and liability, once we know that damages are going to exceed our limits, we want to offer those limits right away. And the reason for that is that we want people to understand that we have money here for you. We recognize the value of the claim, and this is all that we have in order to pay the claim. Most people, when you offer them the liability limits, will take the money in exchange for the release. And that's why most people don't get into excess situations. We hope that they don't go and get a lawyer after we've made that offer, because if they do, there's really no extra money in it for the client most of the time. They just give away a third of it to that lawyer. But we don't do anything about trying to talk them out of getting a lawyer. That's their business. We just let them know what we can do. The third type of claims are the claims where people are going to treat for a longer period of time. They often have complaints that don't completely resolve. They're much more likely to retain an attorney early on after the accident. And basically what I taught my claim representatives is you do your initial investigation, you take care of the cars, you get the rentals taken care of, and then you throw that case on the back burner, because there is nothing that we can do to move that case along any faster than what's going to happen on the other side of it. The insurance company has absolutely or almost no control of what a claimant is going to do, what kind of treatment they're going to seek, how long that they're going to treat, whether they hire an attorney or not. Really, the only things that we can do is we can do social media searches. We can hire a private investigator to go out and observe people's publicly observable activities to see if what they are saying is really true, what they're claiming is really true as far as their impairments and so forth. But other than that, the insurance company is at the mercy of the plaintiff's attorney's timeline on when they want to provide proof of claim. They want to provide any medical bills, any medical records, any photographs, any other evidence that they have to prove their client's claim. And what you'll find, or what you'll see with most attorney rep claims is they all generally handle them the same way. Those are the cases that the insurance companies take a much closer look at. They sharpen the pencil on those. We know that the attorney is on the other side, is enhancing the claim, advising their client often where to treat, who to treat with, what type of treatment, how long to treat, pushing them to build the claim. And so those are the cases where we probably are going to be considering things like bringing in expert witnesses to testify regarding what length of treatment might be reasonable, whether or not certain injuries could be causally related to an accident based on a biodynamic type analysis. So a medical doctor and an engineer both come in as an expert witness to testify whether or not that type of injury could really occur when there's this type of damage to a car. So my advice to young people is to be honest when you're dealing with an insurance company. If you're not hurt badly, I'll just tell you from experience that insurance companies are very generous early on when somebody is not represented by an attorney, and they often overpay the small claims. And we spend 88% of our time, and we pay the big claims. We offer our limits, and we normally pay our limits on the big claims. And we pay, we spend most of our time working on attorney rep claims, where the attorney is trying to enhance the value and we're trying to prove the other side of it. And at the end of the day, the lawyers always get paid.
They do. It's true.
What did I advise you when you came to me for legal advice one time, Joe? About settling.
Wish that
something.
wouldn't happen to you.
About settling something.
I don't remember.
I advise you to get the dang claim settled as soon as you could.
Maybe that was what it was.
The lawyers eat up the money, you guys. They just the
do.
The plaintiff
totally
attorney.
True.
Yeah, the plaintiff attorney gets a third. The defense attorney gets hourly pay, a couple $100 an hour that we hire them for. The experts get paid. The doctors get paid.
And that all gets paid if out of the coverage limit, right? It's eating away from, like in your example, the 100,000.
Yeah. So there's certain laws in certain states, like in Washington, a medical provider can't ding you for more than 25% of the bill if you have a liability limits issue. There's certain protections, but generally speaking, you pay your bills out of your liability settlement.
Right. Let me ask you two questions, Michael. By the way, soft clap. That was excellent. Really good. So I'm going to ask a couple questions and open up to the group here. And I'll ask them, we'll ask one right now. One of the things that you mentioned earlier was an umbrella policy, a PLUP, as we would call it. And I've told you guys before that I have one, but I want to ask you if you can give some guidelines on the limit amounts. And let me give you a scenario here. Let's say someone all in has a net worth of about $2 million. Okay. House equity, retirement accounts, that kind of stuff. Okay. And they've got auto that takes them up to liability of, say, 500,000. Okay. So the math there is a gap of 1.5. And I know that when I started buying umbrella policies, I think about 20 years ago, and I was told then, and I think this is true now, you have to max out your liability on your auto before you're eligible to buy an umbrella. At least that's the way it was with Safeco. So my question is, if someone's in that scenario and has those auto limits, and they do have, liquid assets, non-real estate equity assets, should they always look at their net worth and balance out umbrella coverage to match that, or how do you advise on that?
There's two schools of thought. One of my peers that I shared a cubicle with carried minimum limits on his own policies, and he was a lawyer. Should know pretty well. And that comes back to long career. I mean, I literally handled tens of thousands of cases over a 40-year career, or managed, that many decided value, and had 3 or 4 that went over the limits to where they wouldn't take the limits and settle. And so a lot of what you're buying with an umbrella is just that really small chance that you're going to have a catastrophic loss, and you're going to hurt somebody bad enough that they want your blood. They want to take you personally, because they can. Understand that you always have a big leverage card in your back pocket federally, and it's called bankruptcy. And so you can file bankruptcy and protect certain assets. And how much does that cost? A simple bankruptcy, probably $3,000 to $5,000. I don't know anymore, but you can file bankruptcy to get out of them. So what an umbrella policy really does for you is it gives you insurance coverage in the gaps. So an umbrella covers both your homeowners exposures and your auto exposures, and if you're driving a boat, and it covers everything. And that's why they call it an umbrella. It's over the whole thing. And as long as you have those underlying policies that are required, and Joe was talking about earlier, the required limits. Today, for most PLUP policies, that's $250,000 per person auto and $500,000 per accident auto. I don't know what it is under the fire company right now, but as long as you carry those limits, basically the umbrella policy covers almost everything, and it fills in gaps where there might be little exclusions under an auto policy or under a homeowner's policy. That umbrella policy will step down many times when the underlying policy doesn't apply. And so I have had several cases over the years where something bad happened, and they didn't have coverage under an auto policy, and we still were able to cover the loss under the PLUP. So I think they're a good idea. I have one personally. They're very cheap. They cost about $300 a year, $400 a year, for $1 million.
Yeah, it's not that much. It's not
insurance is there for the big stuff, you guys. Carry high deductibles. Don't call your insurance company when you have a leak in your washer that, ruins the floor a little bit underneath your washing machine. Hire the contractor, have them come in and take care of the $2,000 claim. Because if you make a claim and after you pay your deductible, the insurance company's not going to pay anything. And you're going to have a black mark on your record, on your underwriting record, that probably will be used against you in future rating decisions.
Yeah.
So that's the way you save on insurance, is carry your high deductibles, only use insurance for the big stuff. Don't carry emergency road service. I mean, stuff like that. One of the managers I worked with got canceled by State Farm because she had too many emergency road service claims.
Oh, your own company canceled you. That's not good. All right.
Anyways,
so
that's my thought on PLUPs. I have one myself. I
do too.
Idea.
Yeah. Okay. Audience, it is your turn. Who has a question for Michael? Really?
Buddy Bueller?
That was like super thorough.
Yeah, it was.
What was left
Super
uncovered?
thorough. Christine,
Well,
do you got any insurance questions here while we got an expert on board?
This is Mercedes. I have an insurance question.
Okay.
So I was in a situation. It's long boring story, but I was in an accident with an insured of my insurance company, and they weren't very nice. And I was told that in those cases, just get a lawyer. What do you think of that comment?
Well, that's the reason why many people get lawyers, is because insurance companies do a really poor job of attracting the right talent and training them correctly. And
Yeah.
and so those stories like yours are real. And I've, obviously when you work in the insurance industry, you hesitate to say what you do at a cocktail hour, right? Because most people have an experience and they're not all good.
Right.
I can say that I would still attempt to work with that insurance company and see what they're willing to offer me before I ran to an attorney. It has been my experience over time, and I also I participated in a study one time, and I got to see the results of it. And I can just tell you that generally speaking, people that retain attorneys net less money than people that don't when it comes to insurance claims.
Oh yeah, and it was not State Farm. I'll just say that.
I bet that's happened at every larger company at some point, and that's a conflict of interest.
No. Well, okay,
Really?
we think no. There is law, case law in the state of Washington, that causes them to split handle. So your own PIP coverage, your personal injury protection coverage, if you were in Washington, your collision coverage, your rental coverage would be handled by one adjuster, and the liability claim for the policy of the person that harmed you would be handled by another adjuster. So in Washington is the only state where the same adjuster doesn't handle all of it. And that's just simply because our case law here. Each state's different.
That's interesting. So so Michael, did you have your hand, or Christine did? Okay. Christine and Michael, you're going to go to you next, but I want to get something in first before I forget. I'm the son of an insurance man, so I probably err a little, and so is Michael.
As am I.
Yeah, we err a little bit more towards, better to have more insurance than less. But would like you to just do this fairly quickly, if you would, please, Michael. And I want you to do it instead of me. Quick definitions between PLUP and PIP, so people know what you're talking about.
PLUP, personal liability umbrella policy. So it's an umbrella over the top of all of your other liability policies that you have for your business, for your home, for your autos. PIP, personal injury protection coverage. It is a coverage under an auto policy that pays for your medical expenses, regardless of who's at fault, your own company. If you have, and PIP's mandatory in Washington. You have to sign it away if you don't take it. But PIP coverage pays your own medical. So I think it's a good idea until you're Social Security eligible to carry PIP coverage because it pays 100%. Super generous. You can go get as much treatment as you want in the state. And
and if you're in the business of driving people around in your car, that's a good coverage to have. Okay, Christine, you're up. What's your question?
So, how often I shop insurance? Just because, when I was younger, I'm a very loyal person, stayed with my same policy for years and years and years. And then met another insurance agent and talked to me into letting him take a look at it. Said I was way undercovered. And so he got me more coverage, and I'm saving $900 a year and from switching insurances. So, I was with like a regular, State Farm type company where he's a broker. He can get insurance over many different companies. So your opinion on being able to go with many different companies, do you save more money? Or and then shopping insurance, how often should you have your insurance shopped, and so that you can save some money?
Boy, I've been with State Farm since my mid-20s. I was with them when I was a teenager and had a really bad accident where somebody died. And State Farm stepped in and paid policy limits for me. And I, didn't have to pay any out of pocket. And then they canceled my behind because I was a young, bad driver. And it took me about probably 7 or 8 years before I got to qualify to come back again. And I stayed with them through the years because what I saw, and I'm not here to sell State Farm because I'm retired. I'm not getting any of this. But I just saw through the years the difference between State Farm and the way that some other companies took care of their customers. And I think there's less of that difference today than there was 30 years ago, but it's still there. State Farm is a very reputable company. We're a target because we have a lot of money. And generally speaking, if there's going to be a class action lawsuit or something like that, they'll usually target us because if they can get us to roll under, then the rest of the companies will just settle. And so State Farm, takes that kind of stuff really seriously. We're loyal to our customers, unless they have a DWI or, something like that. We do cancel people, but I just really saw us take care of people over the years. And I did it personally, just like the story I told you. I spent well over $100,000 in defense costs on that case. And then paid the 100,000 limits on top of it. So State Farm just really did a good job in defending. I've heard too many stories about all companies that I think people get lost in the system when they really need their insurance company, and that the agent is still important to the process, even though they're not responsible for making the claims decisions. They understand either connection between you and the adjuster, the adjuster's manager, and sometimes the agent can make a phone call to the manager and say, "Hey, can you take a second look at this thing?" Those kind of things matter. If you're with just anybody, I don't know if that's really out there and available. So, I'm biased because I've been with State Farm forever, still with them. You do get, certain discounts. I think what people allow to happen is they allow creep to happen. As your cars get older, you really ought to drop your comp and your collision coverage for sure, your emergency road service, your rental. It's like you don't need any of those coverages on an older car, and that's half your premium.
Yeah.
So
let me just say something here real quick. And I've heard this from other insurance men and women in the past. As consumers of insurance, obviously, most of our contact with the company is, here's the check, here's the auto withdrawal. That's 99, sometimes 100% of our experience. But I'm telling you, and I've been a claimant a couple times, when you need your insurance, you don't want bullshit. You want people that'll help you, and you want to feel like you're being helped. And one of the refreshing things about the last hour for me has been Michael just saying, look, we're here to help our customers. That's our mission. And not, we're just collecting an annuity, which is a lot of times what a lot of us on the consumer side might otherwise believe. So that's a good message. Michael, you had something. Michael Coe.
Let's see. I guess part of this is I was rear-ended by somebody, an uninsured person. And so basically my insurance was supposed to be taking care of me and my car. And I didn't claim any medical, any of that stuff. I just wanted my car back. And at the end, after getting it fixed, they still wanted me to pay an extra $3,000 to get it out. The car was done, everything was there, and then, no, we want you to pay that. There was a difference in there, and they wanted me to pay this. And I finally had to get an accident attorney to get into here, but it was me fighting my own insurance. So that's one question. And the other one that brought up is you had said something about don't make little claims. Is a windshield a little claim if you get hit by a rock a couple times and you have windshield insurance?
Yeah, you can get
nodding and shaking your head.
Yeah, you can get a rock chip fixed for $25 to $50 at most class shops. So you would, and it costs your insurance company $250, $300 to adjust that claim. And
is it worth? I mean, this is not just filling the chip. This is a big this one that the fill in the chip people go, sorry, that one's too big. And
yeah,
we're gonna have to replace.
Windshields can be several $1,000s too nowadays.
Yeah, and comprehensive claims don't really ding your record nearly as severely as when you have a liability accident. So when you're liable for somebody else's damages, that's really where the insurance company comes after you. Now, if you live on a rock road and you travel too close behind trucks every day to and from your house, and you're getting 3 windshields a year, sooner or later your insurance company is going to say, hey, we're raising your deductible or we're going to cancel you. But unless you have just tons of comp claims, we generally don't.
Windshield is not a big deal. Windshield, that's what I'm hearing. Windshield is, you have to get a windshield every couple of years. That is not a big deal. Is that what I'm hearing?
Every 2 years would be pretty often. I don't know about you. I've never replaced a windshield in any of my cars that I've owned in my entire life. I have a 26-year-old pickup truck right now with the original windshield in it. It doesn't happen to everybody. So are you following cars too closely? I mean, it hits. I've had repairs done and things like that. But
Okay. Just that you're saying maybe not. I haven't had. I don't think I've had a windshield. I can't remember the last time I actually had a windshield replaced. But I just had the rock chip fixed,
yes,
and then
and those.
you're just on I-90. You're just on I-90, and you're not following too close. You're just on I-90,
Yep.
and all of a sudden,
So it
you
used
have
to be, yeah, it
many
used to
dump
be that
trucks and things that don't cover their load.
it used to be that when the repair technology first came out, they called it Novus. I think it was one of the very first companies that did it.
Yeah.
And insurance companies figured out, oh, we can pay $50 or $25 or whatever it is to repair this windshield. We'll waive our insurance deductible so that they'll be encouraged to use this service because the whole windshield replacement cost would be $300 or, back then it was, today it could be $3,000.
Yeah.
But after the insurance companies, after people started regularly adopting those repairs as being, this is an okay way to fix it, State Farm decided they weren't going to waive deductible anymore. And we just tell you, oh, it's below your deductible. Just go down to Safe Light and pay $25 and they'll fix it for you. Don't make a claim. It just isn't worth it because it's below your deductible.
I do have a question, actually, now that I think about it. Michael, you reminded me, I got sideswiped while in Portland, hit and run in a Tesla Model X Plaid, very expensive car. And it broke my driver's side front tie rod, rendering my car inoperable. So I couldn't chase this guy down. And to Michael's point, it all went on my insurance as uninsured motorist. My insurance went up. And I attempted to do something that you're probably familiar with called depreciation of my vehicle because of the accident and the ding on the record and, like that kind of thing. And I got into a back and forth with the insurance company regarding the value of that depreciation. And I'm basically, they're negotiating with me as if this is all state, by the way, they were negotiating with me as if I were the enemy. And, I hadn't had any other, claims for umpteen years, like whatever. And it was really frustrating because they were holding it to like, depreciation of like $2,000 when I know full well this was going to be like, $15,000 to $20,000 depreciation on my vehicle. And, and I even went so far as to get the third party evaluation of depreciation and, kind of go through the whole rigmarole. It was, ultimately I had to relent. I didn't have any, real leverage in the conversation and they weren't going to write a bigger check. And I took the paltry, I think it ended up being like $1,850 or something like that. What is your advice when you're sort of in the negotiation with your own insurance company over something like depreciation or what have you?
Well, again,
and it's all state a bad company or
yeah,
have a bad reputation for that.
And depends on the state. So I did handle Oregon towards the end of my.
I know all states don't do depreciation, but ours does.
Yeah, so diminished value we call them diminished value claim.
Right. That's the proper
DV.
term. Yeah.
And so for the majority of my career, probably the first 30 years of my career, we didn't pay those. I mean, we just didn't because it was kind of a theory. There's a case in Washington, and it's a railroad car case, and it came out in 1966 that that provides the methodology for how you can make that claim when you go to court. So the Supreme Court established it in Washington. Other states have developed it in different ways. Some states do it through legislation. Georgia is the only state where it's just in a chart. It says, okay, you do this much repairs to the car, you pay them this much, you know. But generally speaking, it's like a liability claim. It's an uninsured motorist claim in your case, but all uninsured motorist claims are like a liability claim in reverse. So when you say, well, it's like I was making a claim against my own company, you were, because the other guy didn't have coverage, right? And so
Well, I don't know if he did or not. I mean, basically, he just left me holding the bag after he hit my car.
right.
But you're fighting your basically what you're saying is that we are fighting our own insurance company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you have to understand that your insurance company is going to try to resolve that claim as early as they can in the process for a reasonable amount. Over my entire career, I probably tried about 3 or 4 diminished value claims. They just hardly ever get to court, and usually when they do, it's because they're attached with a bodily injury case, you know, and both get argued.
Yeah.
I think the most that I ever paid for a DV claim that went to court might have been about $3,000 or $4,000. You know, cars just insurance companies ain't going to pay $10,000, $20,000 even on a Plaid. That's $100,000 car.
130.
130.
When I bought it. Yeah.
So, what was wrong with it that it was not fixable correctly?
No, they fixed it. It was like $31,000 in damage. They did a whole new front clip, you know, all the suspension parts and all that stuff. It was not cheap. And you have to do it at a Tesla approved shop, of course, and that's extra and everything. So
yeah, I'd say that especially with a Tesla, they are total pain for us to repair because there's only a few shops around that are authorized, and the company really controls the parts carefully. But because of that, they do get good repairs when they do get repaired.
yeah.
You know, I just don't have any personal experience with a claim ever getting anywhere close to that kind of money. So I mean, I've had Ferraris and, you know, $1 million cars and not paid that much in diminished value. So it's just not a very valuable claim. And
Well,
your insurance
it's a very valuable loss because that mar on the title is significant. Now, if insurance companies, you know, don't want to respect that or, you know, whatever, that's fine. But
it's real. The very first one that I paid in my career, I was in Wenatchee. I was a supervisor there. My stupid insured lost control of his vehicle in the snow, went off into a dealership lot and took out 2
oh my God.
they were Ford Explorers. And anyways, one of them had significant damage, and the dealer, he showed me, here's the invoice on, you know, one that was undamaged next to it. This is what we sold it for. Here's what I sold, you know, this one that had been damaged and fixed that they fixed at their own shop. And it was like $2,500 or something. I just wrote him a check, you know, because that was real proof to me of there is a difference, and it is a real claim. The value of that. I love cars. I have a very special car. Mine wouldn't go nearly as fast as yours would. It's in the eye of the beholder, and most people just look at a Tesla as being, you know, it's an electric car, and it gets me from here to there, and it drives by itself, you know.
Yeah.
And so when you get that kind of thing to court, they just don't get that impressed by it. It's
Yeah.
not the same as when, somebody lost their arm or their eye, or, they lost their wife. That's when insurance companies get out the big bucks. And
Yeah, for sure. So I know we've talked, and I know we're over time. Just a really quick question. The We've talked a lot about automotive and stuff. A lot of us here are real estate people. Anything to say about insurance as it relates to homes and real
yeah,
estate?
so the market you probably are seeing is loosening back up from an insurance standpoint. We got huge scares up here. I live in Spokane, and we had two big forest fires on opposite ends of outside of town, but took out lots of homes. And all of a sudden, then nobody can get insurance. Everybody's getting canceled on their renewals. And my advice to people were keep your head low, pay your premium, don't say a word, suck it up, because people were being left with no insurance and having to go to the residual market
Right.
to get it. That's loosened back up again to where it's getting more competitive again. And I mean, it's still going on. We got forest fires going on around here right now. It's probably always going to happen, but I just see that settling down, and rates seem to be not popping. They
Between
pop.
like the Surfside condo collapse and the natural disasters that are going on everywhere, insurance companies just seem to be dropping homeowners in risk areas or risk properties like crazy. And you're right, that residual market is not very good insurance, and it's quite expensive, but you have to have it because you can't be uninsured. So it's really a tough situation. And in my experience, it seems like State Farm sort of led the charge in the drops. I mean, that was like the front wave of the news was, State Farm's dropping all of these homeowners policies and stuff in places like Cle Elum and, Suncadia and stuff like that, where, forest fire risk is really quite high.
Yep.
Um,
Well,
I mean, it wasn't exclusive to them, but it seemed like, they were at the front of that action.
I'm going to
yes,
jump in here. Michael, why don't you finish up this question? Then I have a couple other things that we're going to wrap up. So go ahead.
Okay. State Farm is one of the more sophisticated companies when it comes to underwriting. I can tell you that we predicted the Los Angeles fires and the Palisades fires. We went to the legislature. We went to the local authorities. We did everything. We banged the gongs down there, trying to get them to do things to help mitigate we tried to get them to allow us to raise our rates. They wouldn't do it. We were losing lots of money down there. Finally, State Farm said, we're going to cancel 6,500 policies in the Palisades neighborhood. And they did that within 6 to 12 months before that fire ripped through there. So I don't know what the average price of a house down there is, but I'm guessing it's a couple million.
Probably 4 times that.
Oh, no. I'll answer that in just a minute. I know the answer to that one.
Well, multiply that by 6,500. That's what State Farm avoided through their underwriters just said, we're going to have a huge catastrophic loss here. We got to lower our exposure. If they're not going to give us premium rate in order to offset it, they wouldn't give us the rate. We said, we're out, and we left.
Yeah.
Yep. So I have a very dear friend who is a very good friend of mine who lives in the Palisades. And I've been to his house probably 30 times. And he's about 2/3 of the way up the hill. And he lives in a house that is a Rambler, a brick Rambler, 1-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,800 square feet on about a quarter-acre lot. That house is worth $6.5 million. Okay. That's just the way it is. Now, there's a lot of value in the land, but that's what you're talking. So take, $6 million times 6,500, and somebody smarter than me can figure out what that is. Okay, I'm going to say a couple things and we're going to wrap up here, okay? First of all, I looked up the cost of replacing a Tesla windshield. Okay.
I did it twice in my Model X Plaid. That was like between 3 and 4 grand.
That's what it says here. It's usually 2,500 to 3,400, depending on the model, glass type, and calibration requirements. The wide range comes from Tesla's acoustic laminated glass, cameras, all the other goodies. Okay. Yeah. So I think one of the points that Michael made that I want to just kind of wrap up with this, and I'm probably going to make it a little bit different way. And if I'm wrong, Mike, tell me. Insurance, I think these days, and it's different than it used to be. It's like a lot of things are, but it's kind of an offense defense. And we've had, a couple stories today about, my insurance company screwed me over. Mercedes was talking about, we had 2 people, which by the way, is akin to split brokerage in real estate where you can have 2 agents under the same broker representing 2 clients. Thought about that too when that was going on. But, I think my throwdown on this is we need to understand the big rocks and not the little rocks. Okay. And the big rocks are save your insurance when you really need it. Okay. The big claims, the little shit, it's just the cost of living in America. And yeah, you still got to pay your premium, but if you got to come out of pocket $1,000, $2,000, you're probably better off just doing it. And like Michael said, keep your head low and keep your policy, because my friend in the Palisades, his policy got terminated, his State Farm policy, and the fire, it was supposed to terminate in March. The fire was in January. He was notified in November, 2 months before or 5 months before that this was happening. Okay. So he was, and if I'm not mistaken, I think he was a State Farm guy. I don't know if he was or not. It doesn't matter. But insurance companies are serious about this, and they will terminate you. So if you live in a place, and the Metro Puget Sound not so much, but Michael lives in Spokane, I'm in the Gorge right now, insurance companies saying, sorry, we're done. Florida, San Diego, North Carolina, Texas, these places have these catastrophic weather events. We need to remember, insurance companies aren't in the business to lose money. They're in there to make money. That's their mission. They are a company. And we are living in a moment right now. I'm kind of jumping out of the auto thing, but if we look at the larger sphere, the largest claims have been in property casualty. And it's been these catastrophic weather events. And I don't see them going away anytime soon. So, if you get insurance, hang on to it. That's different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. It's just kind of a new day. All right. All right, Michael, last word. You're up.
Well, that goes to the question that came earlier about how often should you switch, and I don't switch. I stay with the same company, and State Farm is not what it used to be. AI has entered the picture and, was affecting things in ways that I wasn't really comfortable with any longer, and my time was done. So no panaceas out there, but I can tell you this, I taught every one of my employees to do the right thing, to pay every penny you owe. That is the company's motto. We teach all of our claims people to pay every penny you owe. And there's always going to be situations where people disagree. My advice is to try to get those things resolved, even if you don't think you're going to get 100% of what you want. Because if you try to lawyer up and, force the issue, usually you end up with more expenses than it was worth. So.
Perfect. Mike Nixon, good job, buddy. Thanks, everybody. That was a great presentation. Really
good.
Appreciate it. Okay. Well, that's what we got for this Friday. It's still the middle of summer. The whole state's not on fire. So hopefully you get out and have some fun this weekend. Okay. Take care. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Joe.